Now, voters in the United Kingdom are voting on a referendum that could change the system they use to elect members of parliament. Now, while electoral reform is not expected to pass in the UK this time, the prospect of reform has at least been raised. So, is it time to look at changing the U.S. electoral system? Critics of the Electoral College system, which is used to elect the U.S. president, argue, for one, it makes it not a national election, but rather 50 state elections. Joining me now for more from Atlanta, Georgia, is a former presidential candidate herself, Cynthia McKinney. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. McKinney. Now, I want to ask you why you think a system has been kept in place that has allowed a candidate, going back to Al Gore in 2000, to win the popular vote in this country, but lose the presidency because of the Electoral College system.
Well, we have problems with the Electoral College system. There's no doubt about that. But I do want to clarify one thing. The reason Al Gore lost the 2000 presidential election was because of fraud that was committed by the Republican Party and Republican Party operatives. So now, if we are going to talk about reforming the United States system, I think we have an expert inside the Green Party by the name of Asa Gordon, who has filed 2 cases all the way up to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, failed the first time for lack of standing, not on the merits.
I see.
And so
let's back up, though, Ms. McKinney. If as you allege, fraud was a problem in the Al Gore case, maybe there isn't a case where the popular vote has not been recognized by the Electoral College, and maybe there isn't this, example, this pressing example of how the Electoral College system has failed this country.
Well, you didn't let me get to the point of Asa Gordon's complaint before the courts.
Okay.
And this is an active complaint that is going on right now. The substance of the matter is that the Electoral College allows a minority to control the majority. Under any circumstance, no one would say that that is real democracy, and no one would say that that is fair. But that is not only the function of the Electoral College, it is also the purpose and the intent of having an Electoral College. And what Asa Gordon discovered in his research on this matter is that in the states where there are a substantive number of Black voters, that the function of the Electoral College even disfranchises those Black voters even more. For example, in my own home state of Georgia.
So what would be the solution to that? What would be a better system?
Well, the better system would be for us to get rid of the Electoral College altogether. The better system would be for us to not have these obstacles that exist for voters who want to vote outside of either the Democrat or Republican parties. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party doesn't, for example, represent voters who want peace, voters who want justice, voters who want change. Those parties are status quo, special interest parties that don't reflect the interest or the will of the voters. And unfortunately, as long as we have a system that is able to be purchased by those who can amass a lot of money and mobilize it quickly, we will not have a democratic system. We do not have a democratic system in this country today.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think would be the benefit to the rise of third parties with getting rid of the Electoral College? How are you so sure there would be one? Because there are still a number of legal and social issues that limit the rise of a third-party candidate. In some cases, there are laws that limit them from even being on the ballot. You yourself were a third-party candidate for the Green Party. I want to know what makes you confident that getting rid of the Electoral College would simply solve the problem.
Well, we need to get rid of the Electoral College, but I didn't say that that was the only mechanism that needed to be changed inside U.S. political system. I also mentioned the fact that we have very poor ballot access for those voters who want to vote in a party other than the Democrat and Republican Party. It's very difficult for an independent voter in a state like, for example, Georgia, where I reside, to act for an independent candidate. That also needs to be changed. The influence of money in an election, basically, it's whoever can amass and mobilize the most money is pretty darn sure guaranteed to be able to win. That is wrong. And so we need limits on the amount of money that is spent in campaigns as well. We also have a problem with the way in which we vote. Some countries have what's called preference voting, so that they can vote for several different candidates and not feel that they are losing their vote or wasting their vote. And we don't have preference voting. I actually introduced a bill that would allow us to have.
And we're going to have to wait and talk to you about that next time, but that's actually something that was up in the UK voter reform, was a ranking system that probably will not pass, but that was what the alternative voting system was that they're voting on. That was Cynthia McKinney, former presidential candidate for the Green Party.